Welcome on into another edition of WagerTalk Extra, where we're reminding you every week, no matter what you're cashing on, it's all spending the same. Did you miss us? Well, we missed you, and we have another stacked show for you with three great guests joining me today. I'm your host, Dan Alexander, and at the top, we're going to be talking a little UFC with Andy Lang. We have a new segment that we are very much excited for coming up for you. And then we're also going to be talking a little PGA with my man, Nick Borrman, and then Kevin Dolan, the Irishman. Going to shut it down, a little rugby talk, a little soccer talk. So let's get right into it and welcome in the man of the hour, Andy Lang. We got another UFC fight night coming this weekend in Las Vegas. So, Andy, how was last weekend for us? And I know you're excited about this one coming up, right?
Yeah, last week was great. We cashed our 5%. We all know when you put up a 5%, that's all what it comes down to. So happy to continue the run 13-4 in our last MMA plays, last 17 of those. And we have another 5% up for this week. This could be a tricky card for a lot of people. I think I got a pretty good read on it, and I think there's going to be a lot of fights that trip some people up. If you don't know some of these fighters coming off of Contender Series, you have to go back and look at those fights as well as their fights coming into Contender Series. A lot of names not familiar to the casual audience, and I find that these are some of the most profitable nights that we have because the books struggle with the names that people don't know. The bettors struggle, so I think there's some pretty soft lines that we can take advantage of.
Yeah, and if you have some FOMO on missing out on another 5% cash for Andy Lang, well, all you got to do, just grab his all plays, all access that he has. We have a great code coming for you, or a great promo coming for you here shortly on the show, so stay tuned for that. But Andy, I don't want to talk about anything else other than this new segment we have worked up for the folks. We're calling it There Will Be Blood, and yes, we have sound
your blood. I want your souls. I want them both right now.
We want it all, Andy. There will be blood. And last week, man, was there blood. So what fight are we looking for breaking down where you think might just be some major haymakers be thrown both ways? What are we eyeing this week in the There Will Be Blood special?
Yeah, this is going to be a new segment. We're just going to predict a fight where we're just going to see blood in it. It's as simple as that. So last week, the fight we picked for There Will Be Blood, there was a lot of blood. There was a doctor involved. I mean, it couldn't have gone better for There Will Be Blood. All right, look no further than Mike Malott versus Johan Lainesse. This is all about the fighting style of Mike Malott. He comes forward. He doesn't. He's not shy about throwing haymakers. He got a sub about 40 seconds into his Contender Series fight against Smotrowski. And then in his fight against Mickey Gall, he was getting pieced up on the feet, and he was a bloody mess before he lands a big shot on Gall to get the knockout. That's not good for Mike Malott to get bloodied up by Mickey Gall, who's not known for his striking, and he's got a dance partner in Johan Lainesse. Lainesse came into the UFC, and Lainesse is known to start off really strong, and then his cardio falls off a cliff. And we saw that happen against Gabe Green. He actually got knocked out after he did not manage his gas tank. And then against Darian Weeks, his last fight, he took it real easy. He wins a split decision. But Darian Weeks kind of used his distance, and they stayed away from each other. That's not going to happen. Lainesse is going to come out firing because Mike Malott has very little defense. He does not hold his hands up properly. And that pipe right down the middle is going to be wide open for Lainesse. Malott is going to close the distance. They're going to get in close and just start throwing haymakers. Dan, the over-under for this fight is only 1.5 rounds. It's not even 2.5 rounds. It's 1.5, and it's only minus 120. So the books are telling you this is just going to be an incredibly violent fight. There will absolutely be blood in this one. Buckle up, don't blink, and make sure you tune in for Mike Malott, Johan Lainesse. Should be a barn burner.
And apropos, Andy wearing red as we have our inaugural There Will Be Blood segment there for you. Hop below in the comments. What fights are you excited for? And You think there might be any that needs worthy inclusion this weekend? In There Will Be Blood. The 1.5 rounds, man, might not even make it that far. Andy, you mentioned something at the top that kind of stood out to me, and it was that you mentioned potential like unfamiliar new names, how that might be a little bit of a struggle where, maybe you could find a little bit more value. These are cards that you get excited for. So when there are some of these, lower name or, not household names, I guess would be the better way to say it. Does that kind of lead and lend itself to maybe some live underdogs because these names aren't familiar? And if so, you have any that you're kind of eyeing?
Yeah, there's quite a few fights that I think we have real live dogs here. And I'll start with Odie Osborne. The line is already moving. It was plus 160 when it started. It's plus 135. I think the odds should be completely flipped. Odie Osborne's coming off of a loss, and it's a very random loss. He was winning against Tyson Nam. He made one dumb move, which is he went for a flying knee that missed, and he got caught on the way down. And Tyson Nam has one shot knockout power, and that was all it took. But make no mistake, that was a fight Osborne was winning. He had knocked out Adeshev in the first round the fight before. He went the distance against Vergara in a really, really good fight. And he's fighting Charles Johnson, who's coming off of two. I don't know if he wins. He got the split decision against Zumagulov. I'm not sure he totally won that fight. And then he knocks out Jimmy Flick, who's terrible, coming off of years layoff. And so he gets credited for a knockout win. I think Odie is going to control rounds 1 and 2. If it gets to round 3, could be a little bit worrisome, as I think Charles Johnson has the much better cardio. But Odie Osborne's power is going to cause Johnson real trouble. And don't be surprised if Osborne wobbles Johnson early on. I would expect Odie to be the much better fighter on the feet. Johnson's going to want to get it to the ground. But at plus 135, Odie Osborne is absolutely a live dog in this one. I think that's a little bit of overreaction from the books from a random loss last time. And then the other one is Rafael Alves. He's an underdog against newcomer making a UFC debut, Nurullo Aliev. Aliev is a highly decorated prospect, but I'm not sure he's ready for Alves, who's a UFC veteran. He's had several fights in the UFC, 3 of them. And Aliev is used to being able to bully his opponents. He's not going to be able to do that against Alves. I mean, Alves went the distance against Drew Dober. Not the distance, but he went into deep waters, got to round 3 and got knocked out by a wicked body shot. But he was going toe-to-toe with Drew Dober. If you can go toe-to-toe with Drew Dober, you should have the advantage over Aliev. They're giving a prospect way too much love here. I like Rafael Alves to actually get the win here. He's lost 2 out of his last 3, but they're against really good UFC fighters and Drew Dober and Ismagulov. Way too much respect for a prospect who hasn't proven anything in the UFC going against Alves, who's not going to get tired. He's going to be as strong, if not stronger, than Aliev. I think these are 2 live dogs. Don't be surprised if both of them get their hand raised this Saturday.
So not one dog, but 2 dogs. Osborne at the plus 160, Alves at the plus 140. Andy just cashes a 5%er. He's just like, I'm just going to give all the plays out here on Wager Talk Extra. Well, Andy, again, we mentioned it kind of at the top that if people are missing out on this 5% run that you've continued to go on across multiple sports, terrific deal we have worked out. They can ride with you all the way through the end of March. Just head over to Andy's page at wt.buzz/AL199. Gets you everything, the whole kit and caboodle. And you see Andy coming on this show every time we have the show talking a litany of sports, all of those included in this package, correct, Andy?
Yeah, it's all plays, all 5% plays. We're seeing a bunch of sports really well, so why not put everything in there? Golf, we're 7 for 7 on tournaments this year, turning a profit. And NHL props are hitting a peak time of year where we're cashing a lot, 3-1 just last night alone. So a lot of good things going on with a lot of sports. So when we run a special, we want to make sure that we encapsulate everything that's running well. Tennis, we're doing well. Soccer, we're doing well. So there's a chance for everybody to cash in on all sports and all percentages.
Absolutely love to see it. Huge thanks to Andy Lang. If you want to get his thoughts on this week's PGA action, well, make sure you're subscribed here to Wager Talk TV and go check out our other edition this week of Wager Talk Extra. He has a full breakdown for you on the PGA event. If you want to get Nick Borrman's thoughts on this weekend's PGA event, well, don't do anything. Stay right here because we're going to step aside, and right after that, we're going to check in with our guy over at SportsMemo.com right here on Wager Talk Extra. A little check-in with our man over at Sports Memo, Nicky B. Nick Borrman joining us, talking a little PGA action, and I know he's excited for the MLS season as well. We'll talk about that in just a few. But, Nick, how we doing today before we get into this weekend's event?
I'm doing great. It was so close last week, Dan. Max Homa, runner-up. He was right there. He had that lead on like 15 and just couldn't quite close the door. So hopefully we can cash our 5th outright of this season this week at the Honda.
Yeah, well, it gave us a nice fun sweat, at least, Nick, is the way that we'll look at it. It was a free play. It's what we do here, and that's how you always lead us off when we have you here on Wager Talk Extra. We always take a look at an outright, so I'll turn the mic over to you with a guy with a stellar last name that we're looking at for this week.
Yeah, this is all good. Johnny Vegas. So the thing to know about the Honda is this is a very watered down field. This is the off back-to-back elevated events with another one next week. So we are not seeing many of the big names this week. So this is your chance to take long shots. I know everybody's been waiting to take those 100-to-1 guys. Vegas is not quite at those odds because he's, believe it or not, more of the cream of the crop in this field. But there is a good reason that I do like him and why he's had success here. Vegas is a very good tee to green player, Dan. His weakness over the years has been putting, but it's sort of masked here at PGA National. The Bermuda greens tend to give everyone problems. There's only really a few select guys on the tour that are actually, you can consider, good putting on Bermuda greens. Additionally, this track is very difficult, like we saw last week. This one's actually a little harder. 10 under par is usually a winning score at this place, and players tend to struggle to hit the greens well below the tour average. So you're not getting a lot of, putting opportunities for birdie. You're more or less, if you are trying to get up and down, and hopefully you're only putting from 4 or 5 feet. So it does tend to mask putting woes. So I think that's why Vegas has had good history here. He also, I mentioned his tee to green game. He ranks 5th in strokes gained over the last 6 months, Dan, and he's number 1 strokes gained tee to green in this field by a wide margin, plus 2.18 per round. The next best in the field is the favorite this week, Sung Jae Im, who's way down at plus 1.53. So if he can have some average putting this week and avoid any really regression there on the negative for us, I think he's going to have his tee to green game good enough to give us that chance to get on Sunday. So I like Johnny Vegas this week to hopefully make some noise.
The 37-1 on Johnny Vegas. And I always just thought that Johnny Vegas was our man Johnny Detroit when he goes on a heater at the craps table. So now I know. No, we have a golfer. Johnny Vegas is who we're looking at, 37-1. Hey, I know, Nick, this is a thing that you always include some of these outright winners on your cards for actual clients. I think just $19 gets them the entire package for this weekend, correct? And I think a best bet that you already have loaded for this weekend's tournament play. Is that over at your page now?
Yeah, that's up available at my page at sportsmemo.com. And yes, $19 includes the leaderboard best bet for the week and several outrights. So I have 6 outrights on the card this week, but they're for smaller percentage of plays just because they're higher odds. I got guys at 80-1 and 60-1. So we're going for the long shots, but it is available right now on my page.
And another thing you always like doing, and a place that you do terrifically with, is finding some of these top 5, top 10, top 20, where you can get some of this plus money and really just look for some of these players to have a decent enough tournament to be on that leaderboard. So that's one of the other free plays you have for the I think we're looking at Captain Kirk for this one, correct?
That is correct. We are looking at Chris Kirk this week. Plus 140 you can get on him to finish top 20, Dan. Like Johnny Vegas, Kirk's strength is tee to green. He ranks number 5 in this field over the last year, and he ranked 20th of all players on tour last season in total strokes gained tee to green. So he's got the game to hit the ball around the course. Again, it's just a similar situation with Vegas when it comes to putting. His short game is also very good. He ranked number 10 strokes gained around the green this year. And I mentioned before that missed greens is sort of the norm around here. So that will help. He's played this event, Dan, in 11 of the last 12 seasons. He has missed the cut 4 times, but he's coming off a 7th place finish last year and 25th 2 seasons ago. So he's been, the last 2 years playing here, been doing very, very well. He only missed the top 20 by that one shot 2 seasons ago, but obviously cashed it last year. And then one other thing I like to look at this year, because it's just different on the PGA Tour with these elevated events. If you look at past history of some of these events, Dan, it's not really apples to apples. Riviera last week is always a strong field, but the Waste Management Open is kind of not the strongest field, but this year it was. So if you look back at how guys finished, it's not really comparing this the same tournament as far as strength of field goes. So I'm looking at this way. Kirk has played 2 other weak field events this season. He finished solo 3rd at the Sony Open and tied for 3rd at the American Express. So when the cream of the crop are not in contention, Kirk seems to be the next best. So I'm going to go with him top 20 plus 140 to get you on that leaderboard this week.
And he's been missing the cut. So Christian Kirk is hungry, according to our guy, Nick Borrman. And it's not just the greens Nick's been cashing on here for clients. It's also been on the pitch as well. MLS right around the corner. So us Philadelphians ready to have our hearts broken again by the Union having a lead and then losing it with 3 minutes left. But people can get that MLS season for just $249. And Nick, MLS has been very kind to you and your clients over the last 4 seasons, correct?
It has definitely been my best sport. 4 straight winning years, going for 5 this year. 249 includes all the way through the final, which is December 9th. So it's a long time. It starts Saturday this week, so you're talking over 9 months. And the MLS is taking a 1-month break in the middle of the season to play a World Cup style format against Mexico's Liga MX. That will all be included as well, Dan. So futures are up right now. Definitely a good time to hop on board. It's $249. It goes up to regular price $299 after this weekend.
And also go on and check out WagerTalk News, as Nick Borrman has a future play that he likes in MLS. You can check out that article over at WagerTalk.com. Huge thanks to our man over at SportsMemo.com. sm.buzz/NB is where you can get those best bets. Just $19 for that golf package this weekend. Always a pleasure having you on, Nick. And now we get to end the show with Nick's favorite Irishman. He's coming up right after this on WagerTalk Extra. And let's bring in the Irishman himself. It's Kevin Dolan. We're going to talk a little rugby. We're going to talk a little soccer. But Kevin, I also just wanted to get a brief overview. This weekend, isn't it another one of those Jake Paul boxing fights? You know what I mean? Like, okay, they're actual fights, but I looked high and low. I couldn't even find any odds on that one. So you think we're going to see lines on it come the weekend? Maybe you have to scour a little bit more. But just some quick thoughts on that before we get into your plays for today.
Yeah, there is odds posted over in Europe, Dan. So I got in on some action. I'll be covering that fight later today on WagerTalk today. So tune in for that. Yeah, and it's funny actually you mentioned that too, because when I sent in, we send in the plays what we're going to cover. I actually put boxing in hyphenated quotes as well. Because I'm a bit of a purist, but look, plenty of eyeballs going to be on that fight. So interesting.
No, it's good for at least the growth of the sport, getting people who wouldn't be watching boxing otherwise involved in it. Like, I understand it, but the whole Jake Paul enamoring, that part I don't get at all. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Make sure you're subscribed here so you never miss Wager Talk Today. It goes each and every weekday at noon Eastern time. So Kevin going to be a guest over there. Let's take a look at some rugby action for the folks, because if we're not talking Jake Paul, let's talk something just as popular, and that's rugby. It's Scotland and France taking each other on. And just what do you think, before we get a play from you maybe, as this matchup is going? What are you looking for, as we've talked France on the show before?
Well, things really heating up in the Six Nations right now, heading into match day 3. Ireland looked sensational against France 2 weeks ago. Even I was shocked. Lost the free play on that one, taking France plus 7.5. But I was celebrating anyway. Ireland looked unbelievable. Not to speak too soon as well, Dan, but if we continue to play like that that World Cup's coming to Dublin later this year. Dare to dream, Dan. Dare to dream. But France now, because of that loss, have been pushed way out to 25-1 right now at most books for the title. England is 16-1. Because they've got an extra point advantage. So Ireland's main rivals now, because of that, are the Scottish, penciled in at around 4-1 right now. So, Ireland took care of business 2 weeks ago against the French in Dublin. And now it's Scotland's turn. This is the game of the weekend over in Paris, and it should be a really tricky test for them.
So really, you brought this game up just so you could victory lap it. The Irish side looks incredible. It is really what you did there, Kevin. I noticed it. I couldn't have it go unmentioned. But you do have a pretty strong lean in this matchup between France and Scotland. So you're done patting yourself on the back of the Irish side. What are we betting in this one, Kev?
Well, this is obviously a huge game for Scotland. They're one of only 2 teams as well never to have won the championship under the Six Nations era as well. So this is obviously important. Every year is important for them. And they'll know, look, they get a victory here over the French this weekend. Suddenly they're in the driver's seat. They'll host Ireland at home at Murrayfield in 2 weeks' time in what would be, a mammoth clash, 2 undefeated teams. Gregor Townsend will know what's at stake for this game. And I actually expect Scotland to deliver here. Wales have always provided a tricky test for the Scots over recent years, especially, in game 2. Scotland, kind of always look good in game 1. Collapse in game 2. That wasn't the case, 2 weeks ago against Wales. Scotland really proved their credentials as a championship caliber team in my eyes. They secured their biggest ever test victory against the Welsh in that game, 35-7 blowout at Murrayfield. And perhaps most impressive is how clinical Scotland have looked over those opening 2 games. 4.1 points per entry against England 3 weeks ago at Twickenham. That's absolutely massive. Only Ireland are coming in at the 3+ points mark this year, and all of 5 of Scotland's tries 2 weeks ago against Wales came in 4 phases or fewer. So this is a team in Scotland who are in some red hot form right now. They obviously know what's on the line with a win here. And they have form in Paris as well. They won here 27-23 2 years ago as well. So I think getting plus 9.5 points on the Scottish here is simply too high of a line. I expect them to stay well within that number, possibly even win the game outright. So, yeah, I'll take the Scots this weekend against the French plus 9.5 before the Irish go over there and humble them on their home patch in 2 weeks' time.
Just had to slide that in there. So the 9.5 plus the spot for Kevin. Also, you saw plus 270 we're looking at on the money line for Scotland. If you are so bold, set up that undefeated matchup there that Kevin was talking about. Check him out over at wt.buzz/KD. Best bets up there now. And Kevin, basketball, where we have NBA taking a little bit of a break right now for the All-Star break, but they'll be back this week. And I know you have a pretty great offer for folks for the NBA continuing the rest of the season once the action returns. So what's that all about?
Yeah, we got a special discount offer up right now, Dan. Get the rest of the NBA season for $150 off. It's over on the deals page right now using code HOOPS150. We've been red hot in NBA across multiple seasons. 254, 186, and 5 run our last 445 NBA straight bets. That's 58% across multiple years. I don't look. I'm not bragging, but I don't know anyone else hitting that kind of percentage long term. That's plus 143.58 units. So great time to jump on board, obviously.
Kev, act like you're the Irish side in rugby. Go and brag with that, man. Hoops 150. Great deal there to ride with the Irishman, who, again, has that proven long-term success that you look for to make money here in sports betting. So, hey, Kev, let's leave them with a little soccer. You're one of our mainstays on stoppage time here at WagerTalk TV. So let's give them a little extra here on WagerTalk Extra. What's the game you brought here for the folks?
Yeah, FC Utrecht and Sparta Rotterdam over in the Dutch Eredivisie this Friday, Dan. And, when you look at the table, despite both of these teams where they rank, both top 7, they've hit some pretty rocky form over the last few games. Utrecht have won just 2 of the last 5 overall. Sparta Rotterdam have won just 1 of their last 5. So both teams hitting some patchy form. They'll both be looking to get back on track with a win in this one. Keep pace at the top of the table, and it sets up a really interesting game here on Friday in what's possibly one of my favorite leagues in Europe.
And it looks like, I mean, this is about as pick 'em as it comes. All you're doing is laying that customary 110. So it's a coin toss according to the odds makers. So which way you think this one is landing, heads or tails on this one, Kev?
I like the road team in this one, Dan. FC Utrecht to get the win and cover against Sparta Rotterdam. Sparta Rotterdam have definitely been solid this season, no question. Fourth best home record in the league overall. They recently went on a 10-match unbeaten run across all competitions prior to their last game as well. But those performances, have arguably continued to drop a little late. Wins have been turned into draws have been turned into losses, and they got absolutely destroyed 4-0 by Ajax. Last time out as well, got outshot 23-7 in that game. They registered just 25% possession as well. And, they faced a team on the other side in FC Utrecht here that, while they haven't looked amazing on season-long form on the road, they look as though they're getting better. They did pull out a draw on the road late last month against third place AZ Alkmaar. That match was an absolute barn burner as well. Finished up 5-5. You don't see too many of them in soccer matches. And they got the outright draw against PSV Eindhoven last time out as well. So, this game's at a tipping point, in my opinion. One team is starting to put together better performances little by little, while, the other team seems to be ever so slightly dropping off as the season has gone on. And, Utrecht ranked number 1 in the Eredivisie this year in goals from set pieces. They ranked 4th in goals scored from open play this year as well on the road. So they definitely have the ability to trouble Sparta Rotterdam in this one. And at a straight pick and price here especially, we get that draw as insurance. I like the value in taking FC Utrecht in this game to win and cover on Friday.
Going with the road side, that's Kevin Dolan, the Irishman. We already mentioned chop 150 right off the top of that NBA season package. Ride with the guy the rest of the way. Just head to his page, wt.buzz/KD. Use that code HOOPS150 when checking out. So big thanks to Kevin Dolan. Big thanks to our other guests as well, Andy Lang and Nick Borrman, getting you ready to go here on WagerTalk Extra. We will be back, but make sure you check them out at WagerTalk.com. And we'll see you right back here tomorrow, only on WagerTalk Extra.